INEC today faced lawmakers in the National Assembly to defend the Commission's proposal and the funding request to manage the 2027 elections. And former President Goodluck Jonathan is asking younger Nigerians to take leadership positions in the country, and he thinks old politicians should now be retiring. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimale right here in Abuja. Let's begin tonight by giving you insight into what happened today. It was the memory and the legacies of former head of state military leader Murtala Muhammed. They got former leaders and eminent Nigerians gathering today in Abuja. We saw the gathering and it got a lot of Nigerians talking, especially some of the leaders who attended the event, eminent Nigerians and former leaders like Goodluck Jonathan, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and leaders like the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. But there are interesting perspectives to the leadership in this country, issues relating to the time and the legacies of the late former head of state, Murtala Muhammed. One intriguing part of that conversation is some of those conversations as touched on by former President Olusegun Obasanjo and that of Goodluck Jonathan. But let me allow you first and foremost to listen to former President Olusegun Obasanjo.
The greatest achievement of Murtala was that he created a successor that could go on after him. And the failure of all leaders after Murtala, including myself, is that we have not been able to create successors who could go on after all. I handed over to civilians. And their idea was completely different from the ideas that we handed over to them. There was a time in this country where Nigeria was on the 37th ladder of the economic countries in the world. 37th. And if we have continued 20 years after that, at that rate, we will have been by now among the 10 leading economic countries in the world. But today I don't even know where we are. And what we need to do is produce. Reform and produce. Reform and produce.
Those words from former President Olusegun Obasanjo about the times and the legacies of Murtala Muhammed and the present state of the Nigerian economy. Let me allow you to listen to former President Goodluck Jonathan. This time, he's talking about the kind of leadership that Nigerians deserve.
And sometimes I remember when I contested, 98, 99, when I contested as a deputy governor if you must be up to 40 years before you can even be a senator, before you can even be a deputy governor or a governor, not to talk about president. The president we are celebrating today was the head of state at the age of 38. Obasanjo, when he took over from Murtala Muhammed too, was I think 38 or so. And I remember when I look across, I saw the youth corps, which is the legacy of General Yakubu Gowon, that became the head of state at the age of 32. So why do we begin to think that you must be in your hundreds before you can rule the country? have to really thank the not too young to run movements, that they were able to bring some of this age down. I think we should even bring lower.
Well, sometimes wisdom comes with age, but agility in governance and leadership is equally very important. But there are those who do not exactly believe or agree with former President Goodluck Jonathan. He's one of them. He's the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Take a listen to how he responded to former President Goodluck Jonathan.
Leadership has nothing to do with physical age, but the age of your ideas. Time was when some students were abducted, young girls in Borno State. There was sufficient security information, which, if implemented immediately, would have retrieved these girls. Action was not taken. It wasn't because of age. It wasn't because of age. Age has nothing to do with it. People look at General Olusegun Obasanjo, Nelson Mandela, Lee Kuan Yew, Churchill. They talk about Churchill not because of age. Ideas executed the war, Second World War.
SGF, George Kumeta. Well, what makes our democracy great is the fact that when people have differing opinions and they're able to bring them to bear. But our attention will be on INEC, the funding, the transmission of result, and the 2027 election. A lot of issues that have come to national discourse, and we're speaking with those who are with wisdom, knowledge, and experience. Well, these people they are not old men, but they have come of age. And they'll be sharing their wisdom tonight on the program. But I'll be talking to them right after we've served you with your political roundup stories.
Vice President Kashim Shettima has departed Abuja for Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to represent President Bola Tinubu at the 2026 African Union Summit. The summit, themed Assuring Sustainable Water Availability and Safe Sanitation Systems to Achieve the Goals of Agenda 2063, will focus on advancing continental commitments towards sustainable water management, improved sanitation systems, and the broader development aspirations encapsulated in the AU's Agenda 2026 framework. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Communications, Mr. Stanley Nkwocha, says while in Addis Ababa, the Vice President will join other African leaders at the 39th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of AU Heads of State and Government, as well as the 30th General Assembly scheduled to hold on February the 14th and 15th, 2026, respectively. Justice Obiora Egwatu of the Federal High Court Abuja has recused himself from the two cases filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, against the former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami. Justice Egwatu, who was recently reassigned the cases by the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice John Soho, said he decided to withdraw from the cases for personal reasons and for the interest of justice. This development occurred shortly after the civil suit for forfeiture of 57 properties allegedly linked to Malami was called for mention. The cases were formerly before Justice Emeka Nwite of the same court, who sat as vacation judge during the Yuletide season. The First Lady of Nigeria, Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu, is asking Nigerians to unite for the development of the country, as she insists that the future of Nigeria depends on the willingness of Nigerians to work together. Speaking in Abuja at the 2026 Leadership Award Conference, Mrs. Tinubu says there's a need for Nigerians to keep working together to sustain the growth and development of the nation. The Arawa Consultative Forum has raised concerns over the worsening insecurity across northern Nigeria. Speaking at the forum's 79th National Executive Committee meeting in Kaduna, the chairman of the forum, Mr. Maman Usman, described the security situation in the region as grave, devastating, and deeply troubling, warning that terrorism, banditry, insurgency, and kidnapping are escalating across several states. Mr. Usman said the region continues to face tragic loss of lives, widespread displacement, and the destruction of rural livelihoods. The Renewed Hope grassroots movement has endorsed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for a second term, citing ongoing structural reforms and policy initiatives aimed at repositioning Nigeria for sustainable growth. Addressing journalists in Abuja, the national coordinator of the movement, Mr. Isaac Ude, highlights key reforms since May 29, 2023, including the removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of the foreign exchange system, which aimed to restore fiscal discipline and rebuild investor confidence. He noted that these reforms, though challenging in the short term, have contributed to macroeconomic stability, reduced fiscal pressures, and strengthened foreign exchange reserves. He lauded the administration for youth empowerment and inclusive governance and provision of critical infrastructure development across the nation, and promises to ensure President Tinubu is re-elected into office in 2027.
Well, there you have it, your political roundup stories. Well, I forgot one man who also eloquently spoke at that event. Is the 14th Emir of Kano, Emir Lamido Sanusi. Take a listen to him.
Someone as powerful as the Secretary of State Henry Kissinger wanting to come to Nigeria and General Murtala Muhammed telling him you are not welcome. I mean, how many African heads of state can do that today? If Murtala Muhammed had taken money from his country and stashed in a US bank account or Swiss bank account, he would never have given that speech. So we need to ask ourselves as Africans, where have we lost it? And how can we get back that dignity and that pride? The day Africans are able to hold their head high, as we did in 1975 and 1976, as equal human beings with every race and every nation, as a sovereign nation with the same sovereign rights as every other nation, the day we are able to do that is the day we have come of age.
All right, then, Emir Lamido Sanusi there. So let's get talking today. So the leadership of the Independent National Electoral Commission today faced federal lawmakers to defend the Commission's budget proposals for the running of the Commission and the management of the 2027 elections. And that defense today, the chairman of the National Assembly Joint Committee on Electoral Matters disclosed that the National Assembly will decide the amount to be appropriated to INEC for the implementation of electronic transmission of election results. At the budget defense session, the committee chair, Senator Simon Lalong, stated that lawmakers will review INEC's 2027 election budget proposal, which comes to about 837.7 billion naira, and determine what funding is adequate to ensure effective nationwide coverage. He said that the clarification followed a question of Senator Siriaki Dixon, who asked the INEC chairman whether the Commission's budget proposal factored in the requirements of the amended Electoral Act, which now mandate electronic transmission of results. He queried whether INEC currently possesses the necessary electronic infrastructure to transmit results from the polling units nationwide, and whether the proposal adequately captures the support needed to implement the new legal provisions. The chairman of the National Assembly Joint Committee on Electoral Matters also disclosed that lawmakers will consider an appropriate budgetary allocation for NYC members to be deployed for election duties. The resolution follows a letter from the NYC requesting an upward review of funds to enable corps members carry out their responsibilities effectively during elections. According to the proposal presented to the committee, each corps member will receive 127,000 naira in addition to 4,500 naira for feeding and 5,000 naira for trading over a 5-day period. A total of 450,000 corps members is being proposed for deployment in the upcoming general elections. Let's get some insight into the internal workings, the technical issues relating to how to deliver the elections. perhaps one of the most experienced person to have worked in INEC. He worked as a director legal. He worked as the director of public affairs at INEC, a very seasoned lawyer also, a very senior one at that. Mr. Oluwole Osazi Uzi is live for us virtually from Benin City. Thank you so much, Mr. Osazi Uzi, for speaking with us tonight.
Thank you, Sean, for having me. Yes, Joe. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Retired but not tired. Let's learn from you tonight. 837.7 billion naira. That is a proposal of INEC to be able to execute the 2027 election. What do you make of that figure?
Well, the truth of the matter is that I am a bit removed from INEC, and I don't know the breakdown of the figures. But let me put it this way. Elections are a very expensive venture. How
Some technical glitch there. Well, not exactly the one INEC said the other time, but this time around, internet-based glitch. Because as of today, we do not know what the nature of the technical glitch INEC experienced in 2023. But Mr. Osazi Uzi is back. If you can backtrack for a few seconds, you were frozen technically, and we could not hear you.
Yes. I did say that when we look back at the budget for the 2023 elections, I don't think there's been an exponential growth in what is being presented to the Assembly now. I expect National Assembly to look closely at it, look at rate of inflation, look at how scrutinize the breakdown to ensure that there's efficient utilization of an allocation of resources for everything they need. Hopefully, we'll get it right with the logistics, a good budget for logistics, for trading, for technological innovations in the system. All these have to be taken into consideration. So I don't think it's a fantastic figure.
If you look at the figures, Mr. Osasu, I don't know if you still can hear me. If you look at the figures, 873 billion is what INEC is asking for just for the 2027 elections. They're asking for another 171 billion for 2026 operations. You look at what INEC got in 2023 to conduct that election. INEC at the time said they got about 313 billion naira. And I'm asking, in that, is it inflationary effect or what could have, or is INEC projecting the advancement of technical or computer-based or electronic-based introduction into the election? Or what do you imagine could have exponentially? This is more than double of the almost triple of the budget that the INEC got for the 2023 elections.
Yes, you're quite right. I think it's maybe 220, 230% higher than what they got 4 years ago. So let's put that in perspective. We know that the inflationary trend has been very, very high. The graph has been quite high. So that is obviously a factor which you alluded to in your introductory remarks. A lot of these things, some of these things are going to be imported. And we do know the value of the naira compared to the euro, to the dollar, to foreign currencies as of 4 years ago and what it is today. That, I think, is a big factor. Lots of the things that are going to be utilized are going to be imported. Wages and allowances for training would obviously have improved. And cost of materials generally has been quite growth has been astronomical. So I without holding brief for INEC, I don't know how they arrived at the figure. We'll probably go ahead, we'll study that breakdown and see whether it's reasonable. I think the most important thing is that we get value for money. That's the most important thing that we should be looking at. And if you put it, dollarize it and say, look, how much was that budget in terms of the dollar rating 4 years ago? How much it is now? I don't think you'll see too much of a discrepancy.
I don't know, why are we thinking in terms of dollar? Maybe because we had to do a lot outside of this country. And those who are also asking, INEC should localize the production of everything it is doing. INEC sometimes we say security, lack of capacity in printing and all of that. We see how much of logistical nightmare it could be for INEC to get some of these things done. But give me an idea, Mr. Uzi, with your knowledge and experience being in INEC for several years, what item takes a larger chunk of the budget for an election?
First of all, Nancy, let me say you're quite right that in previous years, previous cycles, INEC has printed a lot of materials abroad. I think part of it is capacity. In previous cycles, we tried to partner with the INEC tried to partner with the security and minting company, but things didn't quite work out. They couldn't meet quality and deadlines, and even they went abroad to print some of those materials that were contracted to them. So I recall in 2007, there was when Atiku Abubakar was excluded from the presidential race, INEC had now to procure materials from, I think, South Africa, from abroad. And they couldn't even sterilize the ballot papers because there just wasn't enough time to do that. So printing of materials, I think, before I left the commission, a lot of that was now being done domestically in Nigeria itself. I don't know whether in 2027 whether materials are going to be printed abroad or not, but the quality of printing, the availability of quality printed materials has improved considerably over the years within that. So the domestic capacity has improved tremendously. So that is that. Logistics, hire of boats, hire of transport takes a big share, and then training and retraining and the purchase, of course, of equipment, software licenses. These are all the things that take a lot of the funds committed to the elections. So
you look at it for what, and the lawmakers were asking, especially Senator Seriake Dixon, whether or not INEC has captured the amendment of the Electoral Act with the assumption of possibility of transmission of result electronically. But INEC, I'm not sure, is able to answer that question. I don't know why. But from your own knowledge, and there is a white paper, remember that it was co-chaired by Dr. Mustafa Lekki. And this conversation around electronic transmission of result was a major one. You know what happened on the floor of the House in 2022. I didn't know that some lawmakers had the capacity to box or to fight taekwondo, but I saw a bit of the ability of some of our lawmakers. If they take to boxing, they will be winning gold medal for Nigeria. We saw that play out in 2022 because of the Electoral Act amendment. And seriously speaking, and I'd like to ask you, with the capacity of INEC, and you may hate or not like or whatever, dislike the former INEC chair, but on the aim at technological advancement, well, which is supposed to improve our electoral process. But the question that a lot of Nigerians would like to know tonight from someone like you, Mr. Uzi, is whether or not INEC has a capacity to transmit election results electronically.
Should INEC be the body responsible for answering that question? But let me speak as at 2023, prior to 2023, there was more than 93% or 97% coverage of the country from the figures we got from the Nigerian Communications Commission, the NCC. Although you remember in 2022, just for the 2023 elections, the NCC was asked to come along with INEC to the National Assembly to defend their respective positions. We thought there was capability from our own, what INEC had done, what they had done, said there was capability to transmit. There are very few blind spots. They exist, no doubt about that. And especially when there's an overload, there's a problem for transmission. But I think that in 2023, INEC was able to transmit, especially the National Assembly elections, was able to transmit results, not real time, quite honestly, but within a very good time, within reasonable time. So if in 2023 it could do that, I'm surprised to hear now that this debate going on as to the capabilities 4 years down the line. I think I thought networking coverage has improved, services are better. No doubt there will be some technical glitches, there'll be some black spots and challenges, of course. But I think over the last 4 years, the things should have improved. So that ought not to really be the debate, if you ask me, quite honestly. So, and especially now, there's no talk about even those 2-3% that could not be covered. There were moves to find different ways, technical solutions that could assist the commission in doing it. And in any case, you know that even if the result is not able to transmit from every 176,000 odd polling units, once you start going towards the collation center, I think every local government area, 774 local government areas of Nigeria, as of that time, had coverage. So the closer you get to those centers, then you are more likely to get coverage, and whatever data is in the system will automatically upload once coverage comes. So I don't see why we should be having this debate at this time. It's diversionary. There are lots of things that are going out of it, and we're losing sight of other important areas we should also be discussing.
So, I mean, it makes no sense.
Sorry, I'm going to add. I read somewhere, I'm not a technical person, so I don't pretend to be one. Starlink has coverage over Nigeria, and so there's some of those blind spots. Perhaps there are technical ways we can overcome some of those challenges. And I know that Starlink cooperating with other service providers within the country. I don't see that as a big challenge, no.
You don't see the possibility of hacking using another nation where we have internet domicile in another country, giving us internet oversight for our election? You don't see that as a problem?
Look, the truth is that in anything technological, once you go online, there is a problem. Nobody can doubt that. But you will not say because of that, you will not take that leap. You must have to do that. What state do you think you'll get 100% coverage and then you're going to start it? If you wait for 100% coverage, it means you're not ready for transmission. And let us reason this thing out. Why are we so dependent on electrical transmission? It is because of the interference, right? Interference in the manual process of doing things. Technology is not a silver bullet that will cure everything, but at least it allows for more transparency. You can actually see these things, and there's less, not impossible, there's less human interference, and where it occurs, an audit trail will be used to say, okay, this is where it happened, these are the people responsible, and things like that. And don't forget, we have a hybrid system. We still are depending on, there's still the ECHA. Results are still going to be carried manually from one position to the next population level. And so we don't lose strength. And we are able to compare the whole essence. Even in 2022 Act, if you compare what is transmitted from the polling unit with what is brought to the collation officer by the presiding officer or the next level collation officer, and ensure that they tally, they should tally, they match. That is the essence. One audits the other.
So invariably, it makes no sense, this argument and the fear, real time, simultaneously, electronics. That argument makes no sense because technically we have moved forward. Is that what you're saying? We have advanced more than 2023 and nobody should have any fear. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't use the word say nobody should have any fear. Of course they have fears, they are concerns. And we should ensure that whatever concerns there are addressed. But not to go back, we've taken one step forward. We've taken several steps forward leading up to 2023. So don't take us back to the pre-2019 position of things. Let us look forward. Let us look at how we can address the things. And part of the problem is that, yes, technology has issues. The glitch that was referred to by the Commission in the 2023 transmission of presidential representatives was a lost opportunity. If we could address that, I think some of these issues and challenges could possibly have been addressed and assurance given to the public. The public believes in it. That the Nigerian Society of Engineers, the technical people have come out to say, well, the fears of the National Assembly, Senate, are not can be addressed. They shouldn't be feared. So once those technical people who know better than we laymen have come to say that, I have faith in what they say. I do.
Legally speaking, and as a senior lawyer, Mr. Uzi, the amendment to the Electoral Act, if I'm living with the House of Reps version, because that is one version that makes a lot of Nigerians happy, the Senate version seems to give a lot of people worry, giving some kind of discretion to INEC officials on the field to determine whether there is network then you'll be able, it just takes your mind back. Mr. Uzi, you remember we discussed issue of incident forms, and a lot of people, legally speaking, and those who have institutional memory about our electoral progress and history, we know that those were dark days of our elections, which nobody wants to go back to, where you give discretion to one person who takes an action, and at the end of the day, it goes a long way. You remember in Ambode's election, Yinsom Wike's election, these are fundamental issues that were raised in the courtroom, and a lot of governorship election issues of incident form in Kano, in a lot of states in Nigeria, were raised. So those who are asking the question whether or not when this law is passed, electronic transmission is allowed, will the IREV material or record be tenable as a primary evidence for any litigation that comes after the election?
Yes, as I think you've captured it very well. And as you were speaking, it's almost deja vu. We've been here before, you know. It said that discretion is a source of a lot of corruption. Once you give somebody discretion, he now chooses to exercise that discretion one way or the other. And from our past history, we see that some untoward things happen for them to exercise discretion in your favor. Just to enlighten your recall the incident forms you mentioned. What are incident forms? Incident forms say, look, the card reader doesn't read everybody's hands. If you're a manual laborer, your example who's used to holding markers and chalk and things like that. So if you turn up for an election day, we shall allow you to vote. So what would happen that if two or three attempts doesn't read your biometric conference, then you will be given an incident form, the form to fill. That is called incident forms. Now the incident form, which was to ensure that nobody is deprived, everybody who had the right to vote is deprived from voting, now became the source of abuse. Rather than cure anything, like every other thing, you try and find a solution to something, not to deprive eligible voters from voting, and now that becomes source of abuse. So you find more people going with the incident forms than actually using the card reader, so that made almost useless, that card reader. That's why the beavers came into that by more different ways. If you can't capture your fingerprints, they will capture your facial recognition. So the INEC tried to improve the process and the system. Now, once you give that discretion, by the way, I'm not so sure I totally agree with the House of Reps version, but it's better than that of the Senate. It's much, much better. The proviso in the Senate version now says that if there is no coverage, attempt to transmit and there's no coverage, who's to determine that? How do you audit that? If a presiding officer comes and says, I tried to and I couldn't, there's no network, how are you going to validate that? No way. So it's just another incident form kind of a metaphor that you are going to use to allow abuse of the system. The primary thing should be that electronically transmitted. And because while we are amending this act, all the things are referred to in the Electoral Act of 2022. But the Supreme Court in the decisions of Peter Obi against INEC and Atiku against INEC said, look, this thing is not entrenched in the law. Then the INEC guidelines are all right, but INEC guidelines are not, they're inferior to the law. If you want this thing, then you should entrench them in the law, put them in the law so that they now become part of the law. The issues of IREV, transmission and proof that there's transmission, there's the words of transfer, transmission, but now it will be articulated in such a way that the primary source for collation of results and is the transmitted result. That is so critical. Of course, there'll be an audit trail. There has to be an audit trail. And you can always use the ECHA, the physical copy, to see and to ensure that what was transmitted is also accurate. So, but the primary should be that, not the manual transmission.
Mr. Oluwole Osazuuzi, a senior lawyer and a former director at INEC. Thanks so much for your thoughts tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for having me.
I appreciate it. We take a break, everyone. But when we return, Senator Abubakar Yusuf will be speaking through us tonight on the program. A former governorship aspirant, a former member of the National Assembly, and an economist. Under the Bola Tinubu government, the issues of budget performance, the issues of elections, and the state of the nation gets us talking. After this break, we'll be right back. disastrous run in the implementation of the budget, at least in the last 2 or 3 years under the Bola Tinubu administration, is being one patching up or the other. Those who are agitated about the disbursement of monies for capital projects. Today, lawmakers have called for an urgent review of the federal government's envelope budgeting system, arguing that it has failed to deliver expected results. They suggest that a shift to a performance-based budgeting model to enhance accountability and efficiency. The Senate today maintained that it would not consider the Accountant General's 2026 budget proposal until satisfactory explanations and assurances are provided regarding improved budget implementation and timely fund releases. I'm being joined on this part of the program by Senator Abubakar Yusuf, a former governorship aspirant in Taraba State, a former member of the National Assembly, a former member of the APC, NWC, and economists. He's live for us here in our studio. Thanks so much, Senator, for joining us, and it's good to see you tonight.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much indeed. Make sense of it for us. Why has it been difficult for the Tinubu government to be able to deal with budgeting? Budget performance has been disastrous. We are still having on the table budget of 2024. We're in 2026. We're talking about 2024 aspect of performance of 2024 budget, performance of 2025 budget. They're still considering. It's perhaps the first time in a long time since Jonathan period we've tried to balance a budget cycle, but this government seems to be struggling with it. What do you think is the problem?
Well, thank you very much. One of the basic problems of that, before you budget, you should have a plan. The envelope system we've been operating has been you budget before you plan. So that has been a major, major issue. If you give me an envelope, which is contrary to my plan, whether it is plus or minus, then, there's no way I'm going to implement, my plan. And therefore, it is bound to fail. Number two,
So you agree that we should jettison the envelope budgeting system?
I agree, yes. I have always said it. Even when I was in the Senate, I said we should jettison envelope system. It is not good for us. It's not going to work well for us. It has always happened that way, and we have always, could not meet 60% of our capital budget in all these years. No releases that have been able to meet.
It's 60, not working. 70. It has not really worked. So we should jettison
it.
Well, you're going to mention number two.
Okay. Well, number two, when you make a budget and you do not have a practical or adequate way of releasing money for the projects, because the release too has been a major, major problem. If you make a budget and the release is very, very poor, there is no way the budget will be executed. And that has been either as a result of, lack of capacity or as a result of poor attitude to work many, many times ago. And that has been one of the major issues that has been pulling the budget. Our budget ought to have been a surplus budget, but all our budgets have been deficit financing budgets. And it's because of what? Massive splurging.
Explain the splurging in what? Break it down for us.
The government is spending on money on what it does not need.
For example?
For example, equipment for running civil service. Every year you budget on computers, every year you budget on vehicles, every year you budget on that. You do not need these vehicles every year. You don't need all these computers every year. You do not need, a lot more things, every year. So it is splurging.
So cost of running government is a problem.
It's a very, very
big problem. We thought that this government says that it wants to cut cost of governance, but it doesn't look like it has been able to achieve it.
No, it has not, and it will not achieve it so long as it allows itself, it allowed government to be buying what it does not need. Budget means buy what you need. So long as you spend money on what you do not need, there are so many, stores in ministries, in agencies that you find things that are not used. They have been bought, they have not been used. So it is, like squandering money, on things that, the government does not need. So that is what splurging is all about, buying something on what you do not need.
What has happened to Olansaye report? Because the president had mentioned it in one of his speeches he addressed to the nation about his commitment to Olansaye's report. And there are those who believe that a major problem of Nigeria is the civil service. You fix the civil service, you fix a huge percentage of our problem as a people. And it does look like those who say, ironically, this government says it wants to cut costs of governance, but in fact, it has even bloated the governor, the number of government more. That we have more ministers in this government than we have in past governments. So it meant that more agencies of government may be existing and more people, more personnel, more vehicles will be bought, more equipment will be bought under this government. Isn't ironic?
Well, it's really ironical. Like I've said, running government, has been so much expensive, in this country. And for some of the reasons that I've given you. Secondly, if we talk about Steve Oronsaye reports, that the government is so expanded, that you are spending money on institutions that you do not need. Sometimes you need to reconcile. You need to reconcile the institutions and make sure that the institutions work for the purpose for which they were meant for. So, and then what you are going to do is look at the institutions that have conflicting, or similar, mandates, and then you can collapse those ones. There are so many institutions that we need them, even within the Steve Oronsaye report. And one example, I can give is fiscal responsibility, our commission. I know in the Oronsaye report, they are saying that we do not need to go ahead with the fiscal responsibility commission. And it is one commission that we need to develop, a lot of integrity, responsibility, and also, acts of running the government, both at the federal, state, and local government. Sean, we are talking about just federal government budget. We have not been talking about national budget. There's a lot of splurging in the states, a lot of splurging in the local government, and therefore, all these ones, by the time you put the national budget, you find that the subnational budget, are even higher than the budget of the federal government. So,
So we are not serious as a people.
We are not in the sense that, for instance, I've always been saying, we need to have, a cooperative and consultative federalism, so that there's a link, strong link between the federal government and the subnationals. Until we have that, we have, yes, we know that we have National Economic Council. Yes, in the National Economic Council, who dictates the National Economic Council? It is actually, the federal government that dictates it. Even though you have governors coming in, everybody, instead of buying what is needed by their own state, they look at, for instance, a state in the north maybe look at what Lagos is doing, and they want to do what Lagos is doing with the kind of resources that they do not have. So what do? Oh, we can be able to borrow. So let us do, what other states are doing. So until we have a comprehensive, link between what the federal government is doing and what most states' government, most of them, they go into deficit budgeting.
If you are to advise this government, because it seems they are struggling with budget implementation and performance, what would you tell them tonight?
First of all,
because that has to be corrected.
Yes, first of all, go do a lot more planning. Planning is very, very fundamental.
I thought they have had about 1 or 2 MTEF.
You see, MTEF, yes, MTEF. When you talk about MTEF, you just hear what the civil servants are trying to tell you and whether they are doing the right thing or not. That is why sometimes you do a lot more arguments, as to the price of crude oil, as the price of, interest rate, exchange rate, and what have you. So until you are able to do this, for instance, I've said here before, if you ask different institutions of government that are responsible for crude oil, each and every one will give you a different figure. So until you have, a comprehensive way of determining this is this, and exactly that is what it is, you will not be able to have things right.
So the Tinubunomics is not working.
For me, it's not working. I'm a member of APC. You know, I will be the last person to hide the facts that, you see, within the policy framework, they are doing their best, but it is not the framework that is suitable for Nigeria at the point in time that President Asiwaju came into power. There are things that, yes, there are fallout. There was no study, there was no plan, there was not. Yes, I'm one of those who said, for me, President Asiwaju ought to have waited, not on the day he was sworn in, to say, what do you call it?
Subsidy
is gone. On what basis? Subsidy is gone. What they are saying that, subsidy is, corruption and what have you. If subsidy is corruption, find a way of protecting or covering, so sit down with your cabinet, sit down with your ministers, sit down with your advisors and say, hey.
Do you think that the economic situation of the country can cost your party the election?
It may and it may not. It may, in the sense that, a lot of ground has been covered, by not addressing the right policies to run the economy of this country. And we still have 1 year to go. And there are a lot more, if the government is serious about it, they can be able to do.
Let me quickly take you up on, you see what is happening with the NNPC and the refinery.
Yeah.
About a year ago, NNPC came after everyone who doubted the veracity of the stories on the running of the refinery, when they said, oh, the refinery has started working, oh, this and that. But it's the NNPC again that came to say, oh, there's a problem. Oh, working. Kudos to Dangote. Dangote refinery has helped us. But we know the millions of dollars that Nigeria borrowed alongside some private interests, and we have not paid the money back to fix the refinery. And we are hearing that the refinery is not working. If you were the president, what would you be doing right now?
Well, like I have said, right when I came to Senate, 10 years ago, I've always said, every year we sat down with NNPC to come out with a critical or in clear terms on how they are running NNPC. It has always been in OPEC. OPEC in the sense that, it's hidden. And up till today, I believe the same system in NNPC is what has been happening years back. Even with the change in management, with the change of this, the system is the same. Since the system is the same, what is NNPC? NNPC is a federation, entity. It is not federal government entity.
Quickly, let me get your view on the position of some American lawmakers who are proposing a law which, in effect, will affect Miyetti Allah, either the Aure or Miyetti Allah, the other group of the Miyetti Allah, and some politicians in northern Nigeria, and inferring on the leader of NNP. No, I'm talking about the former governor of Kano State, Robbie Ukwankwan. So what do you make of that scenario playing out?
Well, about his relationship with the governor?
No, the relationship of extreme ideas and the attacks and the annihilation of other faith.
You see, personally, I think we need to sit down and understand ourselves very, very well. We are different. I give you an example, Shewun. I'm a Fulani man. I'm a Muslim. That does not make me, a supporter of genocide. In 2017, about 900 Fulanis were killed on the Mambila Plateau. And they are Muslims too. So these things are happening not because, there's one faith or there's one group of people against the other. For me, if we want to go ahead with this scenario mindset, we will not be able to do anything. How many, I mean, what are the empirical evidences that are available to say that we are alleging this and we have sent them to court, let the court go, and why are they not taking them to court? How many people of Boko Haram, how many people of others that they say either they have arrested or they have, how many of them have they taken to court?
The law will be called the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act 2026 to the U.S. Congress.
Yes.
And if that bill is passed, it will compel the United States Department of State and Treasury to impose visa bans and asset freezes on Kwankwanso alongside such as the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association, MACBAN, and the Miyetti Allah Kauta Haure for their alleged roles in the systemic persecution of Christians.
Well, like I said personally, what is the evidence? If you make a law on the basis of what they said about Iraq and what they said about Libya, and then you know there are things that they need to study to understand. You know, what is Miyetti Allah all about? What is MACBAN all about? MACBAN, what they are saying that, you know, Miyetti Allah, you know, Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria. That is what
Would you honestly say that there is a freedom of religious operation of Christians in northern Nigeria?
I think there is.
You are from Taraba State.
I'm from Taraba State.
There is a reasonable number of population of Christians in Taraba State, which is totally a different departure, total departure, I would say, in that part of the country, Benue, Taraba, some part of Kwara, some part of Kogi State, Plateau State, but you cannot compare to call northwestern state of Nigeria, where there are Americans are now taking information to the extent that there are some annihilation and of Christians or other faith. Are you saying there is no element of truth in all of it?
What information? Who are those giving them the information? What kind of intelligence?
They say it's a systemic persecution.
What systemic persecution? Which system is persecuting who?
So you don't agree with the stance of these American lawmakers?
I'm not saying that people are not killed. I'm not saying people are not dying. All what I'm saying is that they need to understand the nature and the system of faith operation in this country. I came from Mambila Plateau. And we are safe and quiet. We live very, very well with Christians. We have no problem with this thing attacking that or that.
All right.
So for America to make this kind of law, they need to study, they need to understand, they need to come and say very clear.
We're totally out of time, but I'll allow you 20 seconds. The position of the senators on the amendment of the Electoral Act in relation to the in-transmission. What's your own view? Just in 20 seconds.
My own view that the Senate has not done well at all. That proviso is saying that we go back to 2022. If Mr. President, you know, actually wants to do electric transmission, real time, what is real time? Instantaneous or what? Today, in so many parts of this country, you know, you transact, you know, financial transactions, and it's real time. So what are we talking about? For me, what the Senate did, they are taking us back to 2022.
All right. Senator Abubakar Yusuf, a former governorship aspirant from Taraba State, a former member of the National Assembly, and former member of the NWC of the APC, and an economist also. Thanks so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Wakimale. God bless Nigeria.